Hello and welcome to Drilling Insight. I'm Jeremy Verduzco, host and editor of the Driller magazine. I'm joined today by drilling trainer, the driller writer, and co-host Brock Yorty. How's it going, Brock?
It's going good. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a fantastic day here, and looking forward to having on this next guest. So on today's show, we have Will Keys. Thanks for being on the show, Will. We appreciate it.
Hey, glad to be here. Excited for the opportunity.
So Will is a senior superintendent with Griffin Dewatering, which offers dewatering and groundwater control services across the U.S. He's also a certified well driller with the NGWA. Now, today we brought him on to talk about mentoring, site leadership, and molding helpers into capable drillers. So let's start, Will, with our usual opening question. Did you choose this industry or did it choose you?
That's my favorite question of all the podcasts that you do. So I was in college during 2004. Was in college for a couple of years and the housing market was booming. So I moved into the housing market, was building houses for a general contractor. Everything was going great. And we moved into 2008 and the housing market crashed and I was looking for a job. So I was actually scrolling at that time. It was Craigslist. We may have had LinkedIn, but it was on the periphery of everything else. So it's Craigslist. I answered a Craigslist ad for a drilling company. And I just assumed it was going to be offshore or oil field drilling. So I met with the owner of the company. And one of the questions I actually asked in the interview was, what are we drilling for? And his answer could fill the rest of this podcast with the things that they drilled for at that company. So I think of, did I choose the industry or the industry choose me? I feel like it's that scene in Ghostbusters 2 where they're lowering the guy into the sewer. He willingly went down into the sewer. He's going down. He looks both ways. He decides he may not want to be down in the sewer. And then that ooze reaches up and it grabs his foot and it's pulling him back down into it.
Okay.
And that scene, because he does leave. I ended up staying in it. So I guess I like the industry. It's a good industry. It comes with its challenges, but it's a fun place to be.
And,
so
and you've been stuck in the ooze ever since.
Yeah, that's it. We met in the middle somewhere.
So you started with that drilling company and, I've run into you at the different conferences and whatnot, and this is how we got here. You're a sonic driller. How did you learn sonic?
So how did I learn sonic is a great question. The company bought the second 8140 from Geoprobe that was made on the production line once they made it into production and it wasn't a prototype anymore. So the gentleman that I was drilling with was a driller from the oil field. And so it was him, me, and another helper. And I ended up by default being the assistant driller for that crew based on some other credentials, having a Class A CDL going into the job. So I was with that machine for a year and a half. And the driller decided he wanted to move on, do something. Environmental drilling really wasn't for him. He was from the oil field. So once he left, it was my opportunity to move into the full-time role of sonic drilling. That was late 2013, early 2014. Stayed with the machine for the duration of that period. And we learned you learn real fast what works and what doesn't work with a sonic rig. You get to talk to other people, but being the only sonic driller at the company, the only guys I really had to pull from were the other drillers that were doing conventional drilling, mud rotary, air rotary, augers. So when I had questions, they would oftentimes allude to things that made sense with a roller cone or made sense with a button bit. So I kind of piecemealed it together until we figured it out and we got to a point where our production increased. I would say we had days where we started out, we may get 80 feet in a day and after 3 or 4 years with it, we were getting almost 300 feet a day with it. And that's when we moved into, buying another sonic rig, a bigger sonic rig. And it went from there. I had a good mentor going into the drilling portion of it. He was an air rotary guy. And I went back and forth with him from Sonic, and he needed some help. He had personal issues going on. So I would go over, help him out on the air rigs if it was applicable. And the thing about that was he had the biggest rig at the company. It was the Gush Presh. It was the Brute. They only made, I think, 2 of them. Everybody knows about the Brat, but the Brute's the big brother, the 20-foot stroke, the air.
That's a big boy. Yeah.
It's got the air compressor on it. It's got the high torque. It can spin augers. It's got the huge mud pump. It can pretty much do anything. So just being able to stand on those controls and feel the power the first time you turn that air compressor on kind of sucks you into it. And if you haven't been around it, it kind of sounds crazy that's what gets you going. But once you feel that power and you see the power that you have, it really gets you into the industry. It really just sucks you in, and you don't want to let it go. You want to see what you can do with it. You said, okay, today we did 100 feet. Well, let's see if we can do 125 feet tomorrow. And you kind of work, you hone your skills to a certain point. But the gentleman that I worked with, my mentor, always made it a precedent that we were going to be done by 5 o'clock every day, unless drilling dictated otherwise, which happens. But he was really tough at work, really hard to get to make sure we got production. He pushed the guys, and he never lost his temper to them, but he really pushed everybody hard. But as soon as we got off work, it was 5 o'clock. We were heading back to the hotel. And as soon as you got off, it was knock on the door. You go to the door. He's standing there with Hawaiian shirt and flip flops on. Hey, let's go find a hobby store. I want to go look at remote control airplanes. So, something that was totally unwork related. And we built that relationship over the years of, a good friend outside of work is somebody that you're going to work harder for at work, because you don't want to let them down on a personal level at work by not exceeding what they want you to do at work.
Mm-hmm. So you're, I feel like you're kind of leading into this, but this mentor made a big impact on your life. What's the best lesson that you learned from this mentor? So
we had a lot of conversations, and I thought about this. What did I learn? And so we were talking one day, and I was upset about a situation, and I was telling him that, this is how I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell this guy, this is what I think about it. And he said, well, you can do that. And he said, I have done that before, but let me just tell you that you catch more flies with honey. And he left it at that and let me make the decision on how to handle the situation. And that, I feel like, stuck with me going into a tough situation where you have to confront somebody about something, where you're maybe basing your decisions based off of an emotion, where you cool it down, look back, get centered, figure out what the issue is, and go in there level-headed and handle the situation.
Now, did you take his advice at the time, or did you go in, hard to this meeting and then have to learn the lesson the hard way?
At that time, I took his advice. I will say that I have not always done that. And when I haven't done it, it has not worked out well for me. So that's why it stuck with me, because every time it didn't work, I look back and what went wrong with that circumstance? What went wrong with the confrontation we had to have, the discussion? And you think clearly when you're not basing your thoughts off of an emotion.
I all the time take a deep breath, and as I'm collecting myself, I'm saying, check your ego, check your ego, check your ego, check my driller ego. I'm not on the platform. This is how this has to be. And so I'm thinking about what your mentor gave you for that advice, and showing up, after hours and saying, hey, we gotta cut loose. Did you continue that type of leadership style when you became a site supervisor?
I did. One of the things that my crew knew about me is that I like running. I'm a big into running. I feel like it clears my head. And being a driller, you can't get up at 4 a.m. and run before work. You can, but sleep is very valuable. And I would rather go into the day prepped and ready for the day, and then after work run. So they knew that at least 2 days a week, we were going to be somewhere to run on a trail. And then, because that's what I wanted to do, and they were riding with me. So they kind of got stuck with it. And I said, you didn't have to go, but if you're riding with me, you're going to sit in the truck for at least 30 minutes while I get this run over with. So lo and behold, they actually do get out of the truck after a while and decide that if they're going to be there twice a week, they're going to either run or walk or do something. So it actually got them motivated, but the trade-off was they got to pick what they wanted to do other days during the week. So we did disc golf, we went rock climbing, we went bowling, all sorts of stuff. And they knew we were going to be doing those things throughout the week. So they liked working hard during the day because they had something to look forward to after the day, because a lot of times we're out of town and the only thing you get to do after you get out of work is sit in the hotel room. So being on a small adventure each week or at the end of every day, it gives the guys something to look forward to.
When you have these direct reports, how are you teaching helpers to be drillers? What does that look like for you?
So the guys want to come in, and you can tell who's interested in the process and who's just hanging out there for, they have to be there because they have to be there. And so you can pick out of a group of guys who's interested in something, and you take that opportunity. Maybe you're drilling in a hard rock and it's going to be a 30-minute of just standing there watching it turn. And you give them the opportunity to say, hey, this is the down pressure you need to look for. This is the speed we're looking at, penetration rate. This is what, and you just let them stand there during that rod while it's going down, and let them run the controls for a minute. You take a break, walk around the rig, check everything out. It gives you a chance to get a break. It gives them the chance to see what stresses you're under on the stand. And then you walk back around, and about that time, it's time to make the connection or change rods or trip rods, whatever the case may be. But it gives them the opportunity to see what it's like up there, and you can tell who likes it and who doesn't like it. And when you find that right person, you on the next one, you say, okay, hey, you're going to make this connection here, and I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to tell you every lever to pull and how it's going to work, and you're going to do it. And it's going to take you 10 minutes to make this connection, and it takes me 30 seconds to make. And they understand going into it that they're not going to make it perfect the first time, but that they're not worried that they're going to mess something up because they know there's somebody standing right there to help them. Once they get those, the small things going, and a lot of it is muscle memory, but once they teach themselves that part of it, you give them a little bit more rope to lead themselves out and let them make the connection, let them fill the rod with water, let them take the next sample, let it drill, let them take the sample, and you slowly let them do one step at a time. And over the course of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, they've done every part of the drilling process, and it's time to let them run the day, let them run the job that entire day on their own and see how they do.
So when I ran into you at the NGWA and I said, hey, I love your story, let's see if we can't all three get on together. One of the things we were talking about is your method of teaching right here is very similar to how I work with the Air Force and other young drillers, but you and a colleague developed this into a training program at the first company you worked for, right?
That's right. We started an apprenticeship program, and there's a time period, a 90-day probationary period, just to see how people are going to do. And maybe drilling's not for them, but once we get into it, it's all divided up quarterly. So you might spend 3 months running a probe or working with a probe operator. Then you spend 3 months doing geotech, banging split spoons with, conventional augers. Then you spend 3 months running air rotary, 3 months with the mud rotary guys, and then 3 months sonic. By that time, you're looking at almost a year and a half. If they're still interested, during that time, they can start getting their licenses. But in North Carolina, you have to work under a licensed driller for 18 months before you're eligible to take a A-level license. That gets them right there to that point where they're at the company for 18 months. Hopefully, if you've done it right, that gives them enough experience to take that field test we have to take in North Carolina. They take the field test. They get their Class A CDL in that time period. We get them their Class A North Carolina driller's license, South Carolina driller's license, and then they're ready to go. They're ready to run a crew. And one of the first things that they say to you when they get that chance to run the crew is they're like, I'm not having any problems running the rig, but it's a lot of work to manage the guys and manage the client and manage the job and know when materials are coming. And they say, now I see why it's so stressful to be there.
Now I see why you have to run twice a week to get the stress off.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're at Griffin now. Have you kind of adopted and evolved this training program for what you do there, and for the kind of folks that you're trying to bring in there?
Yeah, so we haven't officially released this program yet at Griffin that we're working on, but it's going to be called the GAP program, or Griffin Apprenticeship program. And at Griffin, we do a lot of dewatering, watering pumps, system installs. And so there's not as much drilling. There's a lot of drilling, but not as much drilling as I was doing before. But the main thing I've noticed here is that there's a gap in knowledge between the most senior level guys and the guys coming right into the field, or the guys up and coming that want to know and want to be the next superintendent, want to be the next supervisor on site. So if we can develop this program, use some of the same guidelines we had in place with the other company, but also pull resources and knowledge from the guys that have been in the industry for 40, 50 years, bridge that gap of knowledge, I think that we can really make something. And think of it, one of the vice presidents of the company told me the other day, he said, you think of every employee, everybody here should be training their replacement right now. And that's not saying that they're going to replace us, but that's so we can do something better. We can move up in the company. We train our replacement takes our place, their replacement takes their place, and everybody moves up in the company together. We grow together that way. So that's what we're aiming for with the program here.
It's rewarding making water come out of the ground, supporting projects. There's so much that we do, and I love to say discovering the unknown, or there's just so many aspects of drilling that once it's in your blood, it's, you're passionate about it. You want to teach it to others. And, you've definitely found a place in this industry, and I'm really happy to have met you and become friends and talk about these things. I have an elevator pitch that I use about discovering the unknown. What is your pitch for young people that might consider going into the drilling field?
I would say it's pretty simple, but stick with it. Just stick with it. Eventually somebody's going to give you an opportunity to do something that you didn't get to do before. Stick with it.
So as you're looking ahead, get out your crystal ball. What do you see for the drilling industry in the next 5, maybe 10 years? So
right now, everybody's in a labor crunch. We need help. We need help bad. How do we get that help? We've raised wages. We've knocked down doors. We've called everybody's friend we know. We've been to trade schools to get people, and we're still in a shortage. So at some point, I think we're going to have to automate what we can automate and bring other people in where, if we can automate one portion of the workforce, those people are no longer doing that job. Eventually we'll free up enough people to have the people we need in our area, or we automate one of our processes. We use telemetry for everything now. A lot of our stuff where you used to have a field tech out monitoring dewatering systems, we can do almost all of that with telemetry and not be on site. We can monitor an entire site for dewatering without having a technician on site. And I see that spreading into other parts of the industry. You see it some in Europe, they're doing it with some of the drill rigs. They haven't totally eliminated the driller, but I know out in the oil rigs, there's some automated oil rigs out there, eliminating the need for the people. I think we're going to see more versatile drill rigs. I think we're going to see, Brock and I touched on this, but you have combination rigs now, but I think you're going to see rigs that can do a lot more. They're going to have a lot more capabilities with the companies coming in from Europe, Camp, stuff like that, going into North America, coming over here, bringing their technologies. I think that's going to be one of the things. And we're going to continue to be in a crunch for drillers, and it's only going to get worse for the next decade until we get some of these people trained up. As many people are leaving the industry and taking all their knowledge with them, we're going to stay in that swing of being in a shortage of drillers, and drillers are going to, at some point, they're going to be able to say, hey, this is what I got to have to be out here. And they're going to be able to demand whatever they need.
Yeah, well, and it's already kind of an employee's market. So
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know what's great about what you're looking at in your crystal ball? It's very important that we're looking at advances and telemetry and just all of the data, and it fits right into Gen Z and Alpha. Just back to that deal of they've had Minecraft in their hands for their entire life. We look back, and I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19. I came back from Woodstock 99, which burned down, and my parents were like, you're getting a cell phone right now, because I called on a payphone and then there were no phones. So jumping into that, are you seeing more Gen Zs with your idea of training and whatnot coming to work for you?
I was just reading an article about the Gen Zs, and I think that the Gen Zs are going to be a great asset for us if we utilize them properly and work off of their strengths. If we try to mold them into what we were doing or our thought process or the boomer thought process, they're not going to work well for us. But I saw Caterpillar's got the out in some of the ash basins, Caterpillar and some of the other big manufacturers have the completely remote excavators and bulldozers, and they're sitting in an air-conditioned cab on the side at the job trailer running those machines. And I think about my son playing Minecraft, and he could be, it's like a big video game. They've got the screen on three sides of them. The only thing they don't have is the quote unquote feel of the machine. And talking to those manufacturers, they said that there's going to be a time where they'll be able to put that remote operation, they could put that in their corporate headquarters and drop off the machine at the job site, and no one has to be at the job site. So that's what we're moving into. And Gen Z is perfect for that.
And Alpha. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up today's episode. Thanks again, Will. So I'm interested in this this training program that you have. So it sounds like you're training people on several different disciplines, and that seems like it's just catered for these kind of Gen Zs and Gen Alpha folks that we're talking about. Folks that they can learn a lot of different things, and so they're not necessarily going to be doing the same thing on the job site every day. So what are your thoughts, Brock?
I think you're absolutely right. I watch my son and daughter and how they play Mario Kart, or the other aspects. It's exciting, and I think part of our issue with newer generations getting into this industry is when they come on site and they look at a piece of equipment and they're like, that's older than my parents, and we talk about, there was a time for conventional and draw works and stuff, but the learning curve and that feel and everything that we talk about from a training aspect really does take hours and hours and hours of being on that platform and watching how that spool grabs cable and the noises and the hydraulics and that stuff. But as we've gone into electric over hydraulic and all of these other aspects, we're going from bi-wing planes to astronauts. And you look at a space shuttle launch right now, and the astronauts are like, the Dragon rocket flies itself. We're looking at an iPad now instead of something that is an entire redundant system with, gauge after gauge after gauge. And I think that's it, is, we're honing in on that picture, and it will help us so that we can focus more on downhole and the unknown.
Okay, well, thanks again to Will Keys. Will, where can the audience find out more about you and Griffin Dewatering?
You can check us out on LinkedIn. We're on griffindewatering.com.
Okay. Well, you can, of course, find fresh episodes of our show on our website or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Search Drilling Insight and hit that subscribe button, folks. And visit thedriller.com for the latest industry news and views. And of course, follow us on the usual social media channels. So until next time, this is Drilling Insight.